Starting on my right.
Donald Collins.
Larry High.
J.B. Loring.
Joe Jones.
Ralph Payne.
Now, if you will, please stand and we'll have the prayer.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this board and all that make up this board. We pray blessings on the staff here. Then, God, we pray that you will give us wisdom to do your will and your way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now we'll have the pledge to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the minutes, and if we have any additions or deletions or changes of any kind, please say so. If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
If any opposed, the ayes have it. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is to appear before the board. Jonathan Williams, Veterans
you.
Barbershop.
Mr. Williams is here. You have on your iPads information that he presented his request. If you will take a moment to take a look at that. And Mr. Williams owns Veterans Barbershop in Cookeville. He's considering opening a new shop and would like to install singular, just regular sinks in each station. So that is what he is requesting. If you'll take a quick look at what he has written, and then he's also put together this document that you each have in paper. He handed to me this morning for your review, and it's regarding that information for the shampoo bowls. You'll push speak, and then it should detect you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got it right there.
If you have any questions, again, his request is to not have a shampoo bowl by each station, but a regular sink. So he's taken the opportunity to look at our rule and make some suggestions, and he's got, needs your approval in order to put this into the new shop he's trying to open.
I explain the history behind this and why I'm here. Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Williams. I own and operate Veterans Barbershop in Cookeville. Been in business over 7 years. Business has been good. There are two of us working. The space I'm in now, it was a rented space. It was previously a beauty salon, so it already came equipped with back bars, mirrors, and shampoo bowls. So I didn't have to really do anything other than make cosmetic changes and go to work. I typically score 100 on my annual inspection. One time I got a 98, but I try to follow the rules and maintain sanitation, do everything I need to do. Because business has been so good, we are looking to expand. We're probably going to move next door. It's a larger space, and add another chair. But the new shop that I'm going to is going to require that I do a build out. I'm going to have to put in the back bars and the sinks and so forth. In the time we've been open, we're just the kind of shop, we don't do shampoos. It's a clipper shop. We come in, get a haircut, and get out. Just walk-ins only. So all we use our shampoo bowls are to wash our hands and combs and sanitize equipment, do what we need to do. But we use it just like you would a hand sink. And before I made this request, I called a couple other barbers in the area, and they're kind of in the same boat. One guy has a rented shop that was previously a salon, so he has shampoo bowls. Another guy had to buy a shampoo bowl and install one just because the rule says you have to have one. So at first I thought I could just do a hand sink because the inspection form refers to a barber sink and a shampoo bowl, and I wasn't quite sure about that. So went online and looked up the board rules, and it was fairly clear that shampoo bowls were necessary. And I made a phone call, and I think they spoke with your attorney, and he came back and said that currently a shampoo bowl is required. So, the sheet that you have in front of you here, everything I just cut and pasted the current rules and asked for, was in the red boxes, explained why I'm asking for what I'm asking for. The bottom red box it's talking about number 6. It says every shop shall contain sufficient equipment to enable it to perform all services offered competently and efficiently. All equipment must be in working order. And I think that's a good rule. So, for example, just like I said in here, if I don't do manicures, I don't have to have a manicure table. If I don't do colors or perms, I don't have to have equipment for that. So if I don't do shampoos, I kind of would like to not have to have a shampoo bowl. Shampoo bowls are certainly more expensive than a hand sink, and I can still wash my hands and do everything I'm currently doing with a hand sink. So I've proposed new language, and it's there for your review.
All right, let me ask our attorney, this is a rule, not a statute.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, it is a rule.
Okay.
And-
Now, would that be classified in this write-up, would that be an ambiguity between two sections?
I'm not sure how much of an ambiguity it is, Mr. President. What I had said, I believe, in my response to Roxana's question from Mr. Williams was that the language of the rule requiring a shampoo bowl, there doesn't seem to be a lot of wiggle room there, but there may be in terms of what the board interprets that to be. And I say that based on the inspection form, which, as Mr. Williams correctly pointed out, says shampoo bowl or barber sink. So I think it would be up to the board to determine whether they wish to accept Mr. Williams' request to interpret the rule language that way for his shop to allow him to do that, or whether the board wishes to stick with the plain language of the rule and say, hey, look, shampoo bowl is a shampoo bowl. We know what that is. We know what it means. You got to have it even if you don't shampoo.
Of course, I'm looking at the two sections where one says if you're doing something, you got to have the equipment, and if you don't do it, it appears that you don't need the equipment.
Chris, I don't know when this rule was changed, but it had always read one sink between each two chairs in the barber shop for years and years and years. And I'm sure Larry in his shop has a sink by his barber chair. Joe does. When I had a barber shop, I had a sink behind my chair. Wasn't necessarily a shampoo,
That's what I'm.
but because back, for so many years, we all just sat on a stool, bent our heads over, and got a shampoo at the barber shop. I don't see why we have this shampoo-only bowl in this rule. I mean, I think we should change it to include shampoo or hand sink behind the chair.
Well, Mr. Payne, that actually may not be necessary if the board goes down to the subsection 6 of the rule that Mr. Williams has highlighted, which we just talked about, says every shop shall contain sufficient equipment to enable it to perform all services offered competently and efficiently. If, Mr. Williams is not offering shampoos at all, then shop shall contain sufficient equipment. I mean, you don't have to have equipment, at least in theory, for services that you don't provide. The only thing that I would say is that it may cause an issue on Mr. Williams' annual inspection if, an inspector who is not privy to this conversation or doesn't, know about this, comes in and looks for a shampoo bowl, doesn't find one, and then potentially issues a citation, notice of violation, something like that for Mr. Williams' shop. So,
Couldn't we head that off, actually,
Yes.
with a letter to the inspectors or something?
You absolutely
If we
could.
decide to go with his request.
Yes,
you
yes.
absolutely could, and
Okay.
I would
I think
suggest
we
that
should.
Roxana add that to his license file so that when it comes inspection time, if anybody needs to look at it, they can see
Right.
what was previously done.
Okay,
May I just real quick?
I think you're ahead if I.
I just wanted to
ask a
clarify,
question.
I just wanted to clarify my request. I would be happy to receive a letter in my inspection file, but what I'm actually requesting is if you just clarify the language up in number 1, subsection A, that would probably clear it up for every barber in the state.
Well, we can't change a rule without a rule hearing.
Oh, I
But
see.
we can go with an ambiguity.
Very well, very well. I'll
You
be
know-
quiet.
Sorry. The old barbers, they use water more so than the modern barbers today. The old barbers, excuse me, they shaved with the water and they did a lot of things with water. And now the new barbers, these clippers are set so close, they have taken the place of razors where you don't need as much water as you once needed. But if you don't offer shampoo as one of your services, I can understand and I can see your point. It's just not worth having. But now we do need a sink, as far as sanitation.
Yeah.
We understand that. But I can
Okay.
understand.
I have a comment also. Back in the years ago, I've been in this a long time, barbers never did much shampooing. And back at that time, if you wanted a shampoo bowl in, it only required one shampoo bowl in the building, in the area, in case they decide to do shampooing. But only thing was required was just a regular sink. But if there come a time that they want to do shampooing, there was a shampoo bowl available, or either they had the hoses that would hook up to it to make a shampoo bowl. And that was the only thing back during the time, but I don't know when, this particular thing was changed.
Okay, you've heard all the pros and cons, and
Let me ask a question, if I may, before we move, Mr. President. Ms. Williams, I heard you say that your shop is growing,
Yes, sir.
and that's a good thing. What happens if you bring in another barber, and that barber has clients that wants to get their hair shampooed? See, that's my concern, because the industry is growing, and certainly things are a lot different than they were 20, 30 years ago.
Sir.
My salon has shampoo bowls at every station. But that don't mean that, it won't work for you. But what I'm saying is the industry is growing. Your business is growing.
Yes, sir.
What happens if you bring a barber in and he has clients that wants to have a shampoo?
That's a fair question. The type of barber shop I'm in is probably a kind you see outside of military bases all over the country. They come in and get clipper cuts. The place I'm looking to go to is actually in the same building. It's just right next door, slightly larger space. I'm looking for one more barber who does what we do, who does clipper cuts. So the person, whoever comes in, will understand before they begin that this is the kind of business
That's what
we
you
are.
all offer.
Yes, sir. Now,
Okay.
if for some reason, some unforeseen reason in the future, we wanted to expand our services, I would be happy at that point to switch out one of the hand sinks for a shampoo bowl. I believe that I should have whatever equipment I need to do the job. So if we ever did shampoos in the future, I'd be happy to make that switch. But in the meantime, and I don't foresee that happening, so for now and probably forever, I would just like to be able to operate with hand sinks. And that's what we need to do, sanitation in my kind of business.
okay. If there's no further questions, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Mr. Williams' request.
A second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Your request is granted.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Welcome.
I'll just sit back here, I'll just watch the rest of the meeting.
Next on the agenda, we have our applications for examination. Today, we're presenting Mr. Curtis Franklin, Antonio Kelly, William Lance Jr., Jeffrey Walton, Antonio Wyatt, Antonio Bond Sr., and Trenton Harris. All have felonies and are submitted for the board's approval. The required information, disclosure from the student, and a letter of recommendation from the school they have attended is submitted for your review. And they start on page 5 of your iPads.
I'd like to make a comment before we get into making a decision on this. In the past, we are constantly having a whole lot of felonies, and person wanted to come back into Barber, and of course they served the time and come back, but we've been having a lot of repeat. And that's what concerns me. They get out of prison, they're out for a little while, and they back into prison. And so I think we should start looking at this a little closer and work on these individually, because we've got some that's been in our trouble 2 and 3 times, and then we get a letter recommendation that this person is outstanding person, and they think that they would be outstanding in the Barber field. You know, that seemed to lower outstanding when you got a lot of convicts out there serving the public. And I think we should start looking at that in the future individually on some of these people, because some of them got a little more different records than, you know, individually. That's just a comment of mine.
I totally agree.
I agree too.
Because at our last board meeting, we realized that we need to see what type of felonies that these are. And we got to treat it according to what type of felony.
And I know it'd take more time, but I think it'd be to our advantage to do it that way.
Right.
You can definitely, of the ones that are 7 or so that we're presenting today, vote on them separately if you decide, or like the last meeting, we flagged one particular one because the history was longer. We can definitely
He's got a long history,
do
too.
that.
Yeah.
I would not.
Okay, you want to take each one separately, and
Is there anyone in particular this time that concerns
That's
you?
the only way we can do them. Take them separate.
Not really. I just, one in particular, I don't know who would want to hire him. That would be the only thing. I think we're trouble in finding a job.
When these applications are submitted, do your office, Ms. Roxana, look over these letters and
We-
recommendations, or you just bring them to the board?
We bring them to the board's decision.
Okay.
Yeah, our
Okay.
office doesn't separate one from the other. We don't. It is your decision which ones you do want to approve, and if you don't, or if any of them you want more information. If they don't send us enough information, we will ask them for more. In this particular case, I think all of them wrote lengthier letters. Sometimes their letters are very short.
Is there any kind of way that we could get information on the felonies ahead of time before we come on just the felonies only? Is there any kind of way we could get the information on them? That way we could have more time to study them?
Absolutely. I can, usually, we have them a week or so in advance. If the board has emails, I can always email them to you. If not, I can put them in the mail to you, hopefully the Tuesday before each meeting. That way it should give time for the mail to reach you. Is that what we would like? Now, the felonies, like the reciprocity, because we're holding people's licenses back, I let them come in, clear up until Friday. So Friday, for example, we had one more felony and we put them in because I don't want to hold it back. So you'll never get all of them because they are the ones that up until the last minute we try to add on. But if you would like to see them, whatever we have the Tuesday before, I can put in the mail to you.
I think this would save time, plus the
Okay.
ones that come in on Friday, we would have time to go over that one or two
One or two.
individually.
Okay.
And it would save time, we can make better decisions.
That sounds fine. So as of, for the February meeting, the week before the meeting, I will put in the mail just everything you're seeing here for our felonies up until that moment so you can review.
Good, yeah.
That'll be better.
That'll be much better.
Yeah.
Now, what do we want to do about the ones today we have before us?
Again, if there's any one of them that concerns you, we could flag it differently, but if they're all okay once you've reviewed them, let me know.
I would think since we finishing up this year and just go ahead and do these the way we have done them in the past and start off the new year at a different approach.
Totally agree.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I motion that we approve these for today, and starting the first of the year, we will look at each case individually.
Your motion is to approve with the same stipulations as
Yes.
before?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second, all in favor, any further conversations? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
So that's on a 2-year probation, correct?
That is correct. They will all receive this afternoon, or by tomorrow, we will mail them the consent orders we've always done. We don't do anything until those are signed and returned to the office. So that will stay the same, starting with the names that we have for February. 1 week in advance, I will mail to each board member, and if I have your email, I can email it. I will mail you all the documents we have until that moment, keeping in mind that at the board meeting, we may have a few extras that came in at the last minute. I'll mail you anything that's there. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Very good, very good.
Next, we have reciprocities. Application for reciprocity has been received for a master barber license from Egypt for Mr. Ibrahim Isam Fawzi. Transcript from the Ministry of Education in Egypt is provided that shows a total of 2,500 hours obtained between 2008 and September 2009. The recommendation is that the applicant take the Tennessee examination. You will see the transcript that lists the classes he's taken, all for your review.
Okay, any discussion from board members?
The recommendation is for, again,
For him to take the Tennessee examination.
I
It would
agree.
be
Thank you.
You'd accept the hours if the transcript looks acceptable to you, but he would need to take the Tennessee examinations.
Would that be the theory and the practical?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay,
I make a motion we accept with the, him taking the test.
A second.
we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
Next on your iPads are our consent orders for the month of November. We received a total of $2,250 that are presented.
You need a motion for acceptance?
I sure do,
We need a
Mr. President,
motion
thank
for
you.
acceptance of the consent orders.
make a motion that we accept the consent orders.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried.
Next Next on your report is your legal report, and it starts on page 43. I will give it to Chris.
Thank you, Roxana. Board members, if you look at the legal report you have before you, you'll have, looks like 11 individual complaints and then a number of other complaints that are identical in the allegations and recommended disposition. If the board members will simply indulge me, I'd request that for this particular legal report, given the amount of cases that are on there, I'd like to ask that the board members each read the legal report, cases, and the recommendation to themselves, make note of any questions, and then we can discuss those once everyone's had a chance to review the legal report. And then once everyone has indicated they've read the report, we can proceed from there.
Little tablet's all out of whack. I must have laid down on it or something. Trying to look at it. Uh-huh. Legal month, isn't it? Okay, are we about ready?
Ready.
Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the legal report as provided to you on your iPads. I'd be happy to answer questions regarding any of the cases listed or the recommendations for discipline or disposition of those cases at this time. So whenever you're ready.
I'll start out with number 3. I think the fine is a little light, and I suggest 1,000 instead of 500. And number 9.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I just wanted to provide a brief explanation of the recommendation for that particular penalty. If proposed penalty, if you read closely the the description, the notice of violation kind of states that the Barber tools and supplies were improperly stored, but other than that, there are no details. And while it's possible that if this matter went to a formal hearing, the inspector could conceivably testify as to what that means, it's like I said in the description, it's not conclusively established. I think it could be argued either way, and so if the board wishes to go in favor of interpreting it that, the inspector did the best they could in their write-up and they'll make it up in a testimony at a formal if it comes to that,
Well, I thought I read more than that.
Well, no, I was simply referring to the alleged sanitary violation on the,
Okay,
in
but
the
there was
description.
other violations.
Yes, there were.
Yes,
And
right.
so,
Okay, that's just my suggestion. And number 9, I'm suggesting 1,000 on it.
There's no recommendations on number 9. So. Right.
Now, each board member, let's start with, on my right and go down the line.
I have several questions I wanted to ask. It's incredible how there's so many shops that's not properly operating their businesses in the state correctly. I'm concerned about number 2, just to start off with. The notice of violation alleged that they observed the shop being open for business to the public, which would allow one or more individuals to practice barbering with an invalid license. First of all, my question is, does this shop have license? I haven't ever had license.
yes, sir, obviously for reasons of anonymity, the shop's name and license number are not provided
That's fine.
on your report, but if you look at the section that says first license obtained and license
Yes,
expiration,
I see that. Mhm.
if there are dates there, that indicates that
they
there
have
is a
had
license. If you see ones like number 4 that says NA in all of those spaces,
I've
that
seen
means
that.
it's an unlicensed individual shop or school, if there were such a thing.
Did we at one time impose violations on each individual operating a salon that had no valid license? Because my question is, if we're just going to recommend $500 penalty, and the inspector say he observed maybe 1 or 2 possibly working in that salon, and I think maybe we need to impose a fine on that shop for each individual that's operating in that salon.
Well, that's certainly one way to go about it. I could review the file and try to determine as best I could how many individuals were in there, and if the board wished to amend the recommendation to go with a certain amount of civil penalty per individual working, subject to, and what I would say is probably the $1,000 limit, since this is a distinct violation that occurred all at once. And
But I'd like to recommend, if I could, Chris, that if there were 2 people operating in that salon, I think each one need to be at least $500 penalty for each operating that salon.
To the board inspector for Kentucky the other day. He finds the person working and the shop for each one he licensing.
And if I can add to that, this is something we have just recently started and all the inspectors are doing. If they go into a shop that has an unlicensed worker, the citation is issued against the shop, against the manager, whether the manager and the owner is one and the same, but the manager is responsible for what's going on there, and the individual. So a minimum of 3 citations are being issued now for unlicensed
Very good.
activity.
Very good.
All right, that's
Very
good.
And then my final one is number 5. Notice of violation, observed that the respondent's shop was open for business on an expired license. The shop owner advised the reason was because financial difficulties, and we only finding $250.
Well, Mr. Collins, one of the requirements that the board is obligated by statute and by rule to take into consideration in terms of calculating civil penalties for a consent order is economic deterrence. So, put another way, a multi-location corporate chain barbershop with 50 locations in the state of Tennessee, the economic deterrent for them is not going to be the same as it is for, a one-man, one-woman store shop. And
I understand, but now I could claim the same route. I can claim the same thing. I can say, well, I'm having hardships, and I could be lying. So I mean, there's always, I'm concerned about that.
And that's not an unreasonable concern. Reading the rest of the recommendation, it's, I think part of the board's role as a regulator is to make sure that individuals and shops who should have licenses and be regulated and subject to the board's jurisdiction have those licenses. So to the extent that someone has, for lack of a better way to describe it, fallen out of the fold, I think it's the board's responsibility to try and get them back in the fold as best they can. But I kind of, with calculating the low civil penalty, I went with sort of a carrot and a stick approach. So if this individual signs this consent order for the shop, they have to pay the civil penalty and complete all the requirements for reinstatement within 60 days of the consent order. If they don't do it, the shop license is automatically revoked by the terms of the consent order. So it's kind of okay, we're giving you a chance. The board, are giving you a chance to get back right and pay maybe a little less than what we might normally find someone in these circumstances. But if you sign this consent order and you don't do it, then your shop license is gone.
Are there fees for reinstatement?
There are.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure of the amount. It would depend on, it looks like this shop has been expired since May of this year, so hadn't gone a full year yet. But at the barest minimum, there would be your customary reinstatement fees, and if there are any late fees applicable for relative to how long they've been expired, then those would have to be paid in addition to the civil penalty.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Well, Donald mostly covered everything that I was concerned about, but on number 10, I think that this guy is saying he's helping the homeless, he's giving them help. I think he's only using that as an excuse to operate an unlicensed barbershop, a mobile shop. That's just my opinion.
Well, actually, the individual in question has never said on either of the complaints that are pending that he's providing services to the homeless. If you read the description closely, it says he is homeless, and he lives out of that car and that vehicle and/or trailer. So there's not even a claim on his part that I know of from either of the files to the effect that he's providing services to the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going through the neighborhood setting up, cutting hair in
just going
neighborhoods.
setting up. Yeah.
Correct. And so, again, the $1,000 would be the maximum for this offense. That was also offered with the other previous offense that has been referred for a formal hearing, which is pending at this time until we have a litigator assigned. The likelihood that this gentleman would pay a $2,000 civil penalty to settle both complaints without a formal hearing is somewhere between slim and none, but I think the board's got to at least make the offer if he wants to settle it for what the board can do in this case. And if he declines to do so, then when his turn comes up for a formal hearing, well, he'll have that plus potentially hearing costs and other expenses to go with it.
Before we get away from 10, I have a question. Could we do anything about it if he's not licensed? If he never received a license, would we be able to do anything about it, or should we just turn it over to city or state or something?
Well,
That wouldn't be in our hands if he never been licensed. I couldn't see where we could legally expect anything from there.
Well, it varies program by program, but some regulatory programs have injunctive relief available through, I guess it'd be Davidson County Chancery Court. I'd have to look at the Barber Board statute to see if that's in here for this one. But if that were available, then that would be a possibility. If not, then the board's kind of limited to what's in its law and rules as to what it can do with it.
Do you think that will fall under the local health department?
That's what I was gonna suggest.
Chattanooga it would, and in Memphis, but smaller towns don't have
Health departments.
health departments
Mm-hmm.
set up for that jurisdiction. That's the bad thing about that.
And even
I think the best thing to do with it would be to turn it over to the city and county licensing commission, and let them get him for not having license to
operate a business.
Yeah.
Right.
operate a
And,
business.
and if, I'm just kind of piggybacking on what has already been said. I'm just so concerned, and my prayer is that the board would, and somehow, along with our legal staff, begin to wrap our minds around the thought of dealing with so much and so many people who are operating as barbers and not having license. I'm very concerned about that in terms of bootlegging. I mean, there's just so much of that going on, and it's really hurting those who have went to school and operating legally in salon. And I know it becomes difficult, but I believe if we can either, as Mr. Payne recommended, dealing with turn over to the license commissions in each city, or quite possibly bring in the health department, because it is a health issue. It's a health issue. But
Definitely, it's a
I have
health issue.
always been concerned about that, because it hurts those who have went to school, obtained the hours, and have been able to be able to operate as master barber and own salons and barbershops that's doing the right thing. It hurts them. And I wish there was some way that this board and our legal staff could begin to think of ways that we can kind of combat this epidemic, because that's certainly what it is, an epidemic.
All you're gonna do is turn them into the city, the county, and internal revenue. That's your three best steps to stopping that.
Okay. Joe, you're up next.
Okay, I had a question on that one, number 10, I think we covered that. And I think number 4 is a similar case where, of course, there once was a cosmetology shop that was closed. And then there was somebody in there operating, cutting hair, said it was family. And house full of family folks. But
Yeah.
they're cutting hair,
Yeah.
bootlegging, so to speak. That's what's going on, and we can't do anything about that. But it looked like it should be something, we could look into stopping that, because that's what is going on. It's just,
That could be
Cutting-
another
cutting
health
hair,
department
yeah.
issue.
and I don't know if that would come on since that was since it was first a cosmetology shop to start with. But if he was barbering, I think it would still pertain to both of us, the cosmetology and the barbering. Could probably have to work out something on that if there's anything to be done. But otherwise, if like if they're not licensed, again, I don't think we could really demand any fines, anything.
Typically, Mr. Jones, the first step for unlicensed individuals or shops from the board is to do the cease and desist advisory notice, and the purpose of that is twofold. On the one hand, for individuals or shops who are inclined to listen to and follow such things, admittedly, probably not the highest number, but there presumably are some that will see that and say, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do this because I don't want to deal with what comes after this. But more importantly than that, it gets the board on the record as having notified all of these individuals or shops at least once. Hey, look, you're on notice. You've got to have a license. You don't have a license. The board is telling you to stop doing this, and if you don't do it, there's more coming down the road. And that helps a great deal in terms of formal hearings and the ability to obtain civil penalties and other relief when it comes up for a formal, because it makes the litigating attorney's job much easier to say, Mr. or Ms. ALJ and or board members, hey, look, the board tried to be as reasonable and fair and accommodating as they could, and notify these folks first and give them a chance to do right and not do what they're not supposed to be doing, but they chose not to do so, and now actually they're back before us for a second time. So at this point, there's no reason to take it easy on them at that point.
I'd like to ask one more, because could we possibly take it a step further? Could the board send a letter to the license agency of each city, and of course, just only the two, health departments in the state? Just send a letter letting them know that we're concerned about these health issues that's being done in our state with unlicensed barbers and cosmetologists, particularly barbers. And just put them on notice that we're concerned about that, and maybe we can get a recommendation from them. Could we quite possibly do that?
I don't see why there's any reason that letters could not be sent of the kind that were described for number 10. And just make the same recommendation for letters in addition to that item, so that
Just to let them know that as a board, which is governed by statutes and rules.
Sure.
From the state of Tennessee, that we're concerned about what's going on in our state, and just to let them know that we are concerned, and maybe quite possibly get a recommendation from them, particularly the health departments.
And emphasize the health issue.
Exactly.
and
Just
basically
to let them know that we are and that we are aware, and we want to let them know that we want to make sure that they are aware of the safety of the public.
Sure, and that's, it varies quite a bit, as I'm sure you all would realize, city by city, county by county, as to what authority such boards or departments might have, and we may not know that at the time we send the letter, but as you said, they could give us some guidance and tell us, hey, look, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do.
You know, you've
Exactly.
got city health departments, but you've got the state that can cover anything in the state.
Sure, and so that would be kind of what we'd do here, is forward a letter in addition to, for number 4, the cease and desist advisory notice, and then also for number 10, just to let them know, hey, look, this is, we have this complaint open, these are the allegations, we as a board are concerned about the health and safety of
Exactly.
the citizens of your city, county, fill in the blank,
Exactly.
whoever we're sending
Exactly.
it to. Please be advised that the, allegation unlicensed conduct and could potentially jeopardize health and safety.
Exactly.
And if you have any questions, please contact our board attorney, and he'll be happy to discuss it with you.
And two,
That's
on that,
great.
they might be aware that those operators, the businesses pay business tax too, and so the city might look into that and say, well, we letting people operate a business here, we're not collecting the tax from it illegally. So I think that they probably jump on it then. And then another thing, if we could get the inspector to check back on number 4, just, and make sure that they're not operating after you
Not operating anymore.
have already given them a cease and desist order. That's all I have.
Okay, Joe, next.
I was just looking at the very last one where they had obtained their license fraudulently. Was that part of that Memphis scheme?
I do believe that's part of it, Mr. Payne, that there will be a few other complaints, I believe, coming up that may be directly or indirectly related, but we do know that there are at least a handful that have to do with that, and it's still to be determined the exact number of how many have to do with that and how many were just independently obtained in such a manner. So that's,
But your office is on top of it.
we are.
Okay, that's good.
I still hear a rumble every now and then around the Fort Campbell area that someone down there is managing to obtain fraudulent license. The other day, someone was in the school telling the guys in the school, you don't have to go through this school, man. I'll get you a license. We can put you one together for $2,500 and get out of here.
Oh, Mr. Payne, I'd certainly be
And,
interested in any such information. If you got it, please feel free to put it.
Well, I hadn't been able to lay my hand upon this individual that is supposedly doing this, but I guarantee you, eyes are open and there are lots of ears out there looking for it. So
When you do obtain that information, please feel
you'll
free
be
to
the
send
first
it
to
to
know as
us.
soon as we can get a hold of it.
We would
You know,
appreciate
the
it.
people obtaining these licenses too, when they go to get a job in a barber shop or a shop of any kind, the inspector is probably gonna run up on that.
Well,
If they're checking numbers. they
Yeah,
will,
checking numbers on.
well, the numbers, until and unless action is taken against the licenses that are listed in this, under this item, then the licenses are valid until they're not
If
valid.
somebody finds out.
Until they are either surrendered or revoked,
Might
or,
put the inspectors on notice of all what's going on and,
Exactly.
to check it thoroughly.
Thoroughly, that's, I
And,
think
and,
that would
and,
help.
and maybe quite possibly, the shop owners,
Yeah.
before they even hire someone, just make a phone call to the board, just to
Well-
see if that license is valid.
members of the board, respectfully, the licenses such as they are, as I said earlier, are valid until they're not, until they're surrendered, revoked, disciplined, or otherwise. And so, any attempts by an inspector to, prior to these items either being surrendered, revoked, or whatnot, to say, hey, you shouldn't hire this person, or, something to that effect, there are serious due process implications there, because on the civil side, it's the same as the criminal side. You're presumed innocent until you're proven or admitted to be guilty. And at this time, none of these folks on that list have done so, or the ones that, if there are any that have, they haven't been processed yet. So, because the board has got to vote to approve this recommendation so that we can go forward and begin to deal with those. And so that's,
Okay, have we covered this? If so, we need a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the legal report as been discussed, along with all the additions that were made.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
gentlemen, if we could take perhaps a 5-minute break before I hand you out the rules, that would be helpful, just so I can discuss a couple things with Roxana and Rachel.
We're not used to idle time, but we'll go along with it.
Very good, JB.
Yeah.
You got that on the record, see?
Yeah, do it.
So,
Okay.
We're back on the record.
On these proposed rule changes, and maybe you've got this in mind anyway, but I'm suggesting that we take these home and we study these, and at our next meeting, then we go through either for or against or any changes.
Oh,
Because to sit here and do this all today, it'd be difficult to absorb and make sure that we're doing the right thing. There's no rush, is there?
no, Mr. President, actually there isn't, considering that the sort of preamble parts to a rulemaking hearing, based on how busy and backlogged certain things are, looking at 2-3 months lead time anyway for right now. And that's what I've been advised for this program and for another one for potential rules. So to your point, I don't think there really is a rush, and if the board members would like to take these home and look at them, you're more than welcome to do so. And if you have any questions or anything, obviously, because the Open Meetings Act, you wouldn't be able to discuss with each other off the record or out of a meeting, but you could call me individually if you would like, and I'd be happy to try and discuss them with you if I could. But really, more than anything today, I just wanted to get these in front of the board to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at and where we're going potentially with these rule changes whenever we can get to them. And I will take the, I guess, if you find a page that says military applicant rule in your packet, that's the most straightforward part, even though the language isn't finalized yet. But there actually was a statutory change that in the last legislative session that is applicable to all regulatory programs, including this one, which requires certain accommodations be made for applicants for these kind of licenses who are active duty military above and beyond what's already there. The language is a draft of what my supervisor, Michael Driver, has prepared. And obviously, even if you just look at what's in here, there's some room for language amendments to be tweaked according to the needs of this specific board. But the short version is, however this turns out, the board will have some additional rule guidance in place for how to deal with and accommodate folks who are active duty military at the time they apply. And so that's kind of the 30,000 foot view on that one. Then if you want to move to the document, it says language for proposed rule changes first considered at December 2013 Barber Board meeting. That's something that I've been working on, and the handwritten changes are things that I came across after I typed this up, and then the scratched out part is a typo that got mistakenly copied and pasted from elsewhere. But you should probably look at that in conjunction with the draft notice of rulemaking hearing that dates back to when Rachel was serving as interim counsel for the board. Everything that Rachel has covered in her draft document here, down through the -1-.07 equipment and location requirements, I've covered that plus a couple of other things in my document. And then the ones for section .18, .19, 20, and 21, those would be entirely new rules. And then some things about sanitation requirements, those are not covered in my document. And so once you get to the end of mine, you would want to start reading the draft notice of rulemaking hearing that Rachel prepared on what would be page 3 of that document with Rule 0200-1-.18 civil penalties, and just read down from there and see what you think of those things. So those are kind of your
Okay.
guiding instructions on how you want to read those. And
I'd suggest that we take these home and each individual board member go through them, make any changes, deletions, additions, and that at our next meeting, we have a full discussion.
that would be perfectly fine, Mr. President. So if
Okay.
that's the board's recommendation, then you can either do it by motion, or it may not even be necessary since you're not taking action on the rules. Just thoughts, Roxana?
I think that'll be fine to just readdress it at the February meeting if you're going to take a.
Right. Now, have we made a motion on your report? We accepted your report, yes.
As amended, yes, sir.
As amended, that's right. Okay. We're down close,
Close to the end?
I'm sorry.
I've got one more thing before we end, if you're
Okay.
ready to wrap up. I wanted to update the board on the continuing education seminar. The planning committee for the seminar that meets in Knoxville was held on December the 9th, and I was able to attend. It went very well. This group will appear before the board at the February meeting to present their 2014 agenda. And then the last group will present, that is the Memphis group with Ms. McDonald. They will come to the March meeting and present their agenda for the 2014 sessions. The dates for the continuing education have already been, the tentative dates have been updated on our website. And again, because we now start offering sessions in February with expertise, we want to update those dates as early as possible. And I think as of next year, all the groups will be able to present earlier than they've been doing. So the session went very well, Mr. High. I did give them the feedback on the barber classes, so they're adding a very interesting one for specific to barbers, for clippers, and then separating another session with the PSI group so that the testing information can be separated for the barbers, since it was geared specifically for the cosmetologist. So I think it went well, and you'll be happy.
Very good.
Yes. That's all that I have.
Okay. Do we have any person in the audience that would like to speak briefly? If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carried. And we appreciate the Christmas card.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, I like Merry Christmas.